Guys, we talked in the first block about everything that's sort of wrong with the offense. We've really talked about it ad nauseum. But Bert, you know, when you said we're putting a lot on Matt Patricia, but really the finger should be pointed at Bill Belichick. What, if anything, do you think Bill Belichick has learned through the first half of 2022?
You know, I think that there's a certain value that you can put on having institutional knowledge of the program. And I think Bill's always absolutely valued that. And if you look, he's very rarely gone outside the organization to add any sort of outside voice. He's rarely gone outside the organization to add somebody at a higher level. He'll go outside the organization to bring in a quality control coach and let that guy work his way up. But it's almost never at like the coordinator level. And so I wonder if the lesson here for him is valuing the institutional knowledge over practical working knowledge. You know what I mean? Because the practical working knowledge here would say you don't have guys on staff that are able to do this, or maybe you should have promoted somebody who did have that in Nick Caley. Instead, I think he overvalued the institutional knowledge of the program, and I think they're getting burned for it.
I think he probably would have to look at the offensive situation right now and maybe have some kind of realization that, boy, it's really hard to create a new offense, which is what they've tried to do with new coaches, and still carry the same week-to-week approach that they've had for 20 years, which is we're going to be a game plan team. Because based on what we've seen, it's really hard to simplify, streamline, which is what he called it before the season started, create something new, but also be a game plan team and have something new on top of all of the newness you've already built week to week. There's so many challenges involved in that. The reason you could be a game plan team for 20 years was because you had this massive
You had a game plan.
Well, you had this massive breadth of offense. And you said,
had this quarterback.
We've got Tom Brady, and we're playing the Ravens this week.
Right.
Let's flip to this game plan. We're playing a completely different defense next week. Let's flip to that game plan. They're trying to streamline and simplify, but also keep opponents guessing week to week, and it's almost impossible.
Real quick, and I can just tell you from my own experience, like obviously my first 2 years covering the league, we're covering the team here, and then I went and covered Dallas and covered the league as a whole. And when I was younger, there was a point where I looked at it, I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this? And then I started asking around about it. Because it's really freaking hard to do that. It's really hard to have a group of 11 players who every week can change who they are to fit who the opponent is. It's why other teams run simpler systems. The Colts, for all of those years, ran simpler systems. Why? Because they wanted to get younger players involved quicker. So there are pluses and minuses to trying to change up who you are on a week-to-week basis. And unless you've got like a really special group of players who can handle the mental load that it takes to do that kind of thing, it's hard at the NFL level, as fast as the game is played, to switch who you are on a week-to-week basis.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, if I'm looking at what did he do wrong, what would he do differently, it's like at some point he has to recognize that it is a quarterback-driven league. And you have a quarterback in Mac Jones where, for better or for worse, you have hitched your wagon to him. So you have to build an offense that is tailored to your quarterback. When I was reading all of your training camp coverage, and I was like, zone runs? Like, is it 2002? Like, what year is this? What are we looking at? You have Mac Jones, a guy, Pro Bowler, went to the playoffs, won 10 games as a rookie. Why are you not building everything around him like he should be involved in it? And the fact that he wasn't, if Belichick could ever admit that he did something wrong, I think that would be it.
And that's what I wonder, is can he admit that he made a mistake trying to change the offense in Mac Jones' second year? Can he admit that naming a defensive coordinator, let's just call Matt Patricia what he is, an offensive coordinator, and taking a guy who is a special teams coach and a failed head coach in Joe Judge, making him your quarterback's coach? Phil, that's not the right move. And like I said in my monologue, I would love to see Bill Belichick he doesn't need to come out and publicly say, you know what, these guys have not done the job I need them to do. I'm taking over the reins. But quietly behind the scenes, can't he, or maybe he has started to take more ownership of that part of the game? Because otherwise, you could damage the franchise long term.
I think he is willing to acknowledge mistakes. I think they've acknowledged one with all the time they spent on the zone runs this summer. They still do it a little bit. It's not the foundation upon which the offense is built, not by any means. And so I think he's willing to pivot when he understands he has to pivot. And that's why I look at this bye-week training and I wonder if there will be some kind of drastic change made, whether it's just the scheme, whether it's the play caller himself, if there's something that happens there, because he can't be looking at this and saying, full steam ahead, we're on the right track.
Well, I do wonder, one thing is admitting a mistake, like the plays we're calling aren't right. It's another, he is a very, whether it's good or bad, he's loyal, right?
Yep.
He gives guys second chances to come back. So is he going to say to Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, guys, I'm real sorry. I know this might help your coaching resume, but I can't do it at the detriment to my team.
I mean, I compared this since the summer to what happened to Andy Reid in Philadelphia. And, if you want to look back and, look at how Andy Reid was seen in 2011 and 2012, it wasn't as this genius. He was literally walking the Green Mile for 2 years. And what everyone to a man who was there will tell you is the one decision that put him there, it wasn't any of the dream team decisions. It was hiring Juan Castillo, who had been his offensive line coach forever and ever, and who was an incredible offensive line coach, coached some of the best line groups in the league, decided to move him over to defense and make him the coordinator. And he lost the locker room, and he lost a lot of the guys in the staff, and he wound up firing Castillo midway through that first year, which was difficult for him, but it wound up being the beginning of the end, and he couldn't stop things from circling the drain from there. I think this is a sort of thing where Bill's got to make a decision now, and this is the point of the season when you do it, during your bye week, where you have to have a sense for which way this is going and whether or not your locker room's still buying into what you're doing. And letting things continue to go if they're going the wrong way and you're losing buy-in from the players can do long-term damage.
I'm just going to ask about the loyalty thing real quick. Isn't Patricia kind of his handpicked guy? Haven't we had the sense for a while that this is the guy he would ideally like to hand things to? Is he suddenly going to say, you're not calling plays anymore, or get the Juan Castillo treatment, you're out? I just have a hard time believing that that's a step that Belichick
it's I'm with you. To illustrate it, you guys know, that Matt Patricia, when Nick Caserio got the Houston job, got Nick Caserio's office. There are little things that that have happened inside the building that have made people think this. And I think Matt's a really good football coach. I think Matt's a good person, too. I don't think, everything that happened in Detroit, I don't think he's been, cast fairly for everything that's happened in Detroit. But Bill put himself in this position where he has to make a decision, and it's going to, I think it's the most precious commodity, the young quarterback. You have a chance that you're going to affect your young quarterback with whatever way you go on that.
And that's what's crazy to me, is that Bill put himself in this position. And Phil, we've been talking about this. We could all see that this was disaster. Other people in the league saw this.
It's like a train wreck in slow motion.
Exactly. It just blows my mind that Bill Belichick wasn't able to see it.
Well, I think he just had confidence in the fact that he would be able to help guide these guys, do a job that they haven't done before, and that Matt Patricia in particular has a great understanding of football because he's such a smart guy and because he's seen it from the other side. But I think at some point you need somebody who understands it from your side. If you're Mac Jones, and at the podium a couple times this year, you talked about how Matt Patricia can explain things from a defensive perspective. He actually said it recently about Bill Belichick too. That's great. Who's bringing the offensive perspective to the table here? Because they obviously could use it.